Protein. Is it bad? Is it good? Does it help you with weight loss and satiety, or is it increasing your mTOR and causing cancer? This is particularly controversial when it comes to animal protein. One of the experts I respect most in this field is Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, and she's a personal friend of mine, and I've had the privilege of having many discussions with her around these topics, and she does an absolutely phenomenal job of synthesizing the literature and making sense of so much conflicting information that's out there on this topic. So check out this little clip, and also make sure to listen to the full-length podcast, and you can find the link for that in the description down below this video. Enjoy.
First of all, when we think about muscle as an organ in particular, I think about it really in two capacities. One as an endocrine organ, which endocrine organs secrete compounds that they can go systemic or they can go locally. And then the other aspect is I think of it as a metabolic organ. So there's really two kind of domains that I think are really valuable there. And then thirdly, if you wanted to throw that in, you can think about it as an organ for locomotion, which is arguably the most common. Mm-hmm. So when you think about muscle as an endocrine organ, contractual, and then it secretes things, there are these compounds called myokines. And what's really fascinating, and there's many of them. So you contract your muscle, and typically resistance training is, I would say, the most robust response, although there's some data on more steady state as well, aerobic. For whatever reason, aerobic exercise is largely studied. And they secrete myokines. And those myokines, there's so many. There's BDNF, which is very common, goes to the brain. There's also interleukins, so interleukin 6. And I want to spend a moment on this because this one's very interesting. Interleukin 6 is also secreted by macrophages, which is part of the immune system, and in a response to an infection or an upregulation of an individual's immunity. In that domain, it is actually considered inflammatory. Mm-hmm. However, interleukin 6, secreted by the muscle tissue, is perhaps acutely inflammatory and then over the long haul anti-inflammatory. Mm. So this is one way in which muscle, as it is, healthy muscle, which secretes these things, largely anti-inflammatory. And again, there's so many of these. And, this is a very young science, which is why I think it's largely not talked about. Mm-hmm. I think that it's, we're talking about basic molecular science that is still emerging, really, and people are spending their life working in the lab, doing muscle biopsies, seeing what these things are. And so from an endocrine standpoint, that's part of it, and even as it relates to bone health, right? So you contract your muscle, it's not just the force. It's also the fact that these myokines are then there's an interplay, an intertalk between them, mm-hmm. which is so fascinating.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Now,
absolutely.
So that this is the anti-inflammatory component of muscle, right? And it's pretty simple in the context of you have to train it, it needs to be healthy. And then there is the metabolic component. And this largely relates to body composition. Having healthy muscle is the site for 80% of glucose disposal, which is basically everything that you're eating. I mean, hopefully this crew isn't eating a whole bunch of carbohydrates, but if you were, muscle is really what you're looking at for the site of glucose disposal. Mm-hmm. In addition, there's a big push about cholesterol and statins and we've all seen this, but muscle is actually a solution to that. Mm-hmm. It's a large site for fatty acid oxidation. Mm-hmm. Thirdly, just at baseline, it is responsible largely for your resting metabolic rate, which means all the energy, all the calories that you would be burning at baseline are largely determined by your muscle tissue. Mm. And right. So then thirdly, when we say muscle as an organ for locomotion, that's obvious, but it's, very pliable tissue that allows for activities of daily living and is largely related to our capacity to live well. The more muscle mass you have, the less morbidity and mortality you have. So that means the less you're actually going to suffer from chronic diseases. If you do, you're much less likely to die or be hospitalized from them.
Hey, this is Ari. I hope you enjoyed this little clip. And if you want to listen to the full length podcast, the link for that is down in the description below. Also, one more thing before you go, I want to mention, in case you don't already know about it, our formula, Energenesis. This is an amazing product that has multiple compounds in it that are scientifically proven in numerous studies to increase your energy levels, not just by 3% or 5% or 10%, but by 30 or 40 or 50% in a very, very short time frame. So one of these compounds that I'll mention here is called NT factor phospholipid, and it is an extract of phospholipids that comes from lecithin, and they extract the pure phospholipids from this, things like phosphatidylcholine, phosphatidylethanolamine, and many others. And these are the same fatty acid compounds, phospholipid compounds, that compose our cell membranes and mitochondrial membranes. And this specific patented formula has been shown actually to enter into the bloodstream undigested, basically, without being broken down and denatured through the digestive process in the stomach and the intestines. It makes it into the bloodstream and actually makes it all the way to our cells and to our mitochondria, where it helps repair damaged mitochondrial membranes and facilitates our mitochondria functioning better. Now, all of that sounds like wonderful theory, and it sounds like it could be beneficial, but the real test is, has it actually been studied and been proven to increase your energy levels? And the answer is yes, absolutely. There are numerous studies outlined in a wonderful paper by a scientist named Garth Nicholson in a paper called Lipid Replacement Therapy. I highly recommend checking this out if you're interested in digging into the research. But this compound has been studied in the context of multiple different kinds of chronic fatigue. Aging-related chronic fatigue, obesity-related chronic fatigue, obscure things like Gulf War illness, and numerous studies in chronic fatigue syndrome. And there are studies showing that this has the capability. They've taken one study, in fact, actually showed that in elderly adults over the age of 65, it restored their mitochondrial health, which had deteriorated heavily. It restored it to the level of healthy 29-year-olds, believe it or not. And they've actually measured energy levels in these people. And all of these studies across the board show improvements in energy of at least 25%, and typically more like 35 to 45% in just the span of between 4 to 12 weeks. That's how long all of these studies are, 4 to 12 weeks. They're showing dramatic, huge improvements in energy levels by helping to repair these mitochondrial membranes through this thing called lipid replacement therapy, using, again, this patented form of a phospholipid extract called NT factor. This is just one of about 20 ingredients proven to benefit mitochondrial health that you'll find in my formula, Energenesis. So I strongly encourage you, if you are struggling with your energy levels, if you're dealing with chronic fatigue, go grab yourself a bottle or 3 of this, or subscribe and save. Try it out. You are going to be blown away by the results. We get so many testimonials. We get so many emails from people talking about how this one thing has transformed their lives. So I cannot encourage you strongly enough to give this a shot. And let's say you buy 3 bottles, try out the first one, give it a month. And if you don't notice significant improvements, you can return the unopened bottles to us for a full refund. So give it a shot. I really think you're going to be blown away by the results. The formula is called Energenesis, and you can get it at theenergyblueprint.com or click the link below. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll talk to you again very soon.